Hello, everybody. We are going to be going from the beginning to the middle or end-ish of the target clicking game in this video. So I just wanted to get started with the beginnings of in first class when we set up the mode framework. So we'll just get our basics set up for our project. So we need things like void setup, a function that runs at the beginning of every sketch, and void draw, the function that is called at the frame rate of your animation, or 60 frames a second. So let's start with, we'll make a simple size. We'll go a 600 by 600, a classic choice. And what we want to do is we want to make a game where there's a target kind of moving around, bouncing around. We're going to click on the target and we'll get points. If we miss the target, it's going to, we'll lose a life. After we miss a number of times, we'll lose the game. And as we click on the target, it'll get faster and theoretically harder to get more points. And we'll have that as our basic game. The exciting thing about the project isn't really so much the game we're going to produce, but it has all the trappings, well, many of the trappings of all the projects we'll do. So the first thing is going to be the mode framework. So we want to take our draw function and we want to divide it into different steps, different channels, different modes, if you will. And the idea is that one mode will be the intro screen, another mode will be the actual playing of the game, a third mode would be the game over screen. And that way, we can just change our mode and we'll go from one of those scenes to the next. All sorts of games use this. Your typical Final Fantasy game has, your overland world traveling, and then you get into a battle and it switches the mode to the battle screen. Or maybe similar to Pokemon, same kind of thing. You're traveling around in the world, and all of a sudden, a wild such and such appears, and then the game suddenly switches from the map to another, kind of sub-game within a game. And that's what we're talking about, these different modes that we want to program in. If we try and program that all together in one long program, we would tear our hair out as we're trying to organize this. So the mode framework will help us separate the program into different modes that we can program separately. So I'm going to have an int variable called mode, and it's going to have different possible values, such as 1 will be our intro screen, and 2 will be the actual game playing, and 3 will make it the game over screen. And we'll just keep it simple for now, just those 3 modes, and if we wanted to add in more in the future, it'd just be a pretty straightforward matter. Let's see, mode, well, an int doesn't do anything on its own usually, it's just a number, so we have to give the int meaning. And so we're going to use it if, else if chain, to take a look at the value of the modes, and then sort of subdivide our program into these distinct sections. So for example, our draw function now will say, hey, if mode equals 1, then we'll run this code, the intro screen code. Else if mode equals 2, we'll run the actual game itself. If mode equals 3, and we'll have the game over screen. And you could just type in all the code for your intro screen, all the pictures and shapes and colors and things that you wanted to make. But then we didn't really improve our situation very much. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this into what are called functions, just like the draw function and setup function exist. We're not going to put all the code in here. We're going to make a function like intro screen. And that function doesn't exist yet, but it will contain all the code that will draw the intro screen. And we'll have a game. And we'll have game over screen. Or a game over, maybe. It would be good. I'll just call it game over. Maybe I'll just call it intro. That seems nice and efficient. That's great. Okay, so there we go. So what have we done? Well, we have a mode variable that keeps track of which mode we're in, and depending on its value, we'll either be drawing the intro screen, playing the game, or showing the game over screen. And you know what? We'll probably set mode to 1 at the beginning of our game. This will probably want to show the intro screen. Now we can manually, sort of, so to speak, change the channel as we're testing our game. We could just set mode to 2 when we run the game, and it'll start in, the game playing part. We could set mode to 3. It'll start in the game over part, just so we could test out those areas. So we'll manually set this as we go. Alright, mode framework is great. Now we could just go down to the bottom and start programming in, void intro and, void whatever else we want to put in, game over. But you know what? I think we get pretty tired of scrolling after a while. We saw in our Sketchpad project that there's just so much scrolling to do, and it's hard to keep track of things. So instead of going vertical, we'll go horizontal. And we've made some tabs here. Just click on this arrow and you could make a new tab, and they're just sort of named for the different modes. So our code will go for these, for the modes will go in these separate tabs. It all technically is still one big file when we run it, but it'll just help us organize things. We'll also have an interactions tab for the mouse released function to keep track of what we're clicking on. So I'll do void mouse released. Over here in intro screen, I'll do the void intro. In the game, I'll do void game. And game over, I'll do void game over. And that's great. So I'll just quickly make these look like something just so we can keep track of it. I'll make the game over screen, red. I'll make the intro screen green. Red, green, blue. And the game itself, oh wait, that's the game, not game, or intro. There we go. I'll make the intro screen green, and the game itself we'll come back to. We'll make that target kind of move around. Maybe I'll put in just a black background for now. So it's important to test as you go. So I might just run this and see if I see the green background. Yeah, oh there it is. And if I change channel to 2. Now it'll only be running the game, which has a black background. So let's see. Yep, and then change mode to 3, and we'll see the game over screen, the red background. Sure enough, that's working. So whatever code you put in here, I won't spend too much time making pretty screens because that'll be your job, and I think you'll find some satisfaction in making them look pretty good. We have one last thing I didn't mention about the draw function and the mode framework. That is this else, this final else. And sometimes you could accidentally, or maybe some malicious person sitting beside you might lean over and type in something like 99 or something, and that's not covered in here. It might take you a while to find an error like that. So you might want to have some just sort of like background white or something that's just like very different from your other modes. It'll just signal to you that the mode has been altered in an unexpected way. So I think that would be helpful. Okay, so there's our basic mode framework. Woohoo! Next is going to be having our target move around. So we're going to go to the game itself, this game function, and we're going to have an ellipse represent our target. You are likely to add in some kind of picture at some point to do that instead. That was covered in class, and I probably won't go into it too much on this video, but we might have a separate video for that. So I'm going to make an ellipse. It's going to be moving, so I need to have variables to keep track of those things, x and y, with its x and y position. And then I'm just going to make it 100 by 100. No reason, just easy numbers to remember. And hey, look at those are red. Why are they red? Think to yourself a second. What do you got to do with variables before you start using them? If you said declare them, then you are right. Yeah, at the top of our program, we're going to have some more space for ints x and y. We probably want to give them some default value. Hey, if 600 is our width and height, what would give us an x and y that would be the center of the screen? Oh yeah, 300 by 300. So let's put mode to 2 and just see, do we get an ellipse at the center of the screen? We sure do. Wow, look at that. So now we want it to kind of move around. And also it would be nice, it would bounce around, bounce off the walls and such. So how do we get something to move? We experienced that in the animation project. We got things to move, we animated them, but they only really moved in one direction, or at least a predefined direction. So it's not really what we want here. We want it to be able to move in technically any direction, and then be able to switch its direction when it bounces on things. So we're going to need a couple more variables. We're also going to include variables called Vx and Vy, which stand for a velocity in the x direction and a velocity in the y direction. Hey, guess what? In physics, the definition of velocity is the change in position over time. So this variable will contain how many pixels will x change by each frame. And if it's positive, it'll move it in one direction. If it's negative, it'll move it in another direction. For Vx, positive Vx moves the circle to the right. Negative moves it to the left. And for Vy, remember upside down y-axis, so positive moves it down and negative moves it up. And that's all accomplished with a simple 2 lines of code, x equals x plus Vx, y equals y plus Vy. And that means we're just going to be changing x every frame with whatever value we have here. Let's try it. Let's see if we can make sense of this. Actually, Vx equals 0, Vy equals 0. How much are we going to be moving every frame? Well, if you said not at all, then that's correct, because we're adding 0 to x every time. And as we know, adding 0 doesn't change things a lot. So let's change it up. Let's say we make it 5. Vx is 5, Vy is 0. Hey, think to yourself, how's that going to make it move? If you said it's going to move to the right, then you're right. It'll just be moving over to the right, and it doesn't bounce yet, it just flies off the screen. If we make this negative 5, we'll move it to the left instead, because we're subtracting 5 from the x coordinate. Same with Vy. I can put this to 0, and positive 5 will actually move it down because of the upside down y-axis. Sure enough, there it goes, bye. And negative 5 moves that circle up. It's all happening not because of some special name, like Vx and Vy are just names I've chosen. There's nothing special about these variables, they're just numbers, just integers. But because of this formula that's acting upon these coordinates, and these coordinates are being used in this function, it's changing the position of that circle. We can get diagonal movement if we were to kind of combine a value in Vx and a value in Vy. Hey, what do you think? What direction is this going to move? Let's see. Were you right? Whoa! And you could probably change it up in all sorts of different ways. I imagine there'll be a quiz on this at some point where I give you different values and you'll let me know what direction it'll go in. Alright, anyways, moving along. We got bounce stuff now. It'd be nice if this kind of bounced around on the screen, so maybe I'll change this up a bit so that it's not going up exactly 45 degrees. See what happens if that circle were to bounce off of the top of the screen. What happens? Well, it's going to keep on. It's going to the right and up. When it hits the top of the screen, it's going to continue going to the right, but then it's going to go down. And think about it, if that same sort of situation was happening on the bottom wall, if the circle hit the bottom, and then whatever direction it was going, left or right, it's still going to be the same after the impact, but it's going to flip its vertical direction. It's going to change Vy. And as we saw, the direction is really controlled by that negative or positiveness. Is that, I don't know, the sign? I'm not too sure what the proper math term is there. But it's going to be determined by whether it's positive or negative. So how do we flip something from being positive to negative and negative to positive? We multiply by -1. So let's see, if we hit the top wall, we went over this in class quite a bit, but if you missed it, how do we know our circle's at the top? Well, we check the y-coordinate, and we can see if it's less than or equal to 0, because that's the top of the screen, right? So if it's less than or equal to 0, or this is the, this is the symbol for or, the pipes at the top, just above enter, press shift backslash, I believe. Hey, you can say, or it's on the bottom. So if it's greater than or equal to the height of our screen, which is 600, what are we going to do? Well, we just want to switch Vy. We want to go from positive to negative, or negative to positive. So Vy equals Vy times -1. So if it's coming in positive, it's going to come out negative. Let's, I guess I have to change up. Let's do -5 and 2. So it's moving up. Let's see if that works. Is it going to bounce? Wait. -2 and 5 maybe would work better. There we go. There it goes. Hey, look at that. It bounced. It doesn't bounce off the left or right yet. So we'll go and fill that in. It's just another if statement. I'm going to check to see if x is less than or equal to 0, or x is greater than or equal to the width. Again, 600. Then we're going to swap bx. So there that is. That's our bouncing code. Woo-hoo! Let's see if that's working for us. Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, nice. Just one little problem. It's the impact is happening at the center of the circle, and that's because x and y, by definition of ellipse, is the center of the circle. So we're kind of checking when we say, if x is greater than or less than, we're really checking if the center of the circle is less than that. So if our diameter is 100, then we could just sort of shrink in that border by the radius, 50. So instead of checking if it's greater than, wow, sure what that's all about. Oh my. Well, that was fun. I don't know what that's about. Hope my computer doesn't burn. Anyway, so we'll keep on going here. We're just going to increase it by 50 and decrease this by 50, so that we're sort of shrinking in the border of collision, of bouncing. And again, it's 50 because that's our radius if our diameter is 100. So now we'll look like we're hitting the very edge. Still actually checking the center, but the center is now sort of bouncing at a place that makes it look like the edge of the circle is hitting. Looks pretty good. I actually kind of like it without the equal signs. Just makes it look like it's hitting a little bit deeper into the edge. But whatever you want to do, it's not important. Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, looks good. Anyway, so we got our bouncing little target now. So things are going pretty well. Next step is let's get our intro screen sort of functioning. I'm not going to do a very nice job of the intro screen, as I said before, but I would like to make it so that I start at the intro screen like this, and the game starts, and then I can go to the next screen. Right now I'm locked in here. So how do I change the mode or change the channel to the actual game from within the game instead of just manually typing into this number? So that's in mouse interactions. So I'm going to go to the mouse released function, and I'm going to build that mode framework here as well. So I'll say things like, hey, if mode equals 1, this is how I'll handle mouse clicks. And else if mode equals 2, this is how I'll handle mouse clicks. And else if mode equals 3, yay. Oh, no, I still didn't get it. I don't know. Anyways, if mode equals 3, it gives us game over. This is what happens. So, and maybe have like a final thing. I might do a print line statement, PRINTLN, just to give me a hint like mode is broken or something, just like a little signal. And maybe I'll do plus mode just so I print out like what the value is in case some joker comes along and changes my mode somehow so it's not 1, 2, or 3, or if that joker might be me because I'm being silly or just forgetful or careless or my fingers are fat or whatever. It gives me some feedback. I'll see a white screen, and when I click it'll say this, so that'll help me. So anyways, we wanted to subdivide our mouse clicks. So now when mode is 1, that's the intro screen. What does our clicks do? You should probably make this a little more sophisticated. Add in a button code, some sort of like button you have to click to start. But I'm going to simply say something along the lines of mode equals 2. Yeah, that's it. That's all you got to do. If I was to run this intro screen now, as ugly as it is, I can now click and start the game. Because that's what this mode framework's all about. It makes it super easy to sort of, change the channel to go into some other aspect of our game. when we're game over screen, I'm going to set mode back to 1. It sort of restarts our game. And then the middle, well, in the game itself, it's a little bit more complicated. Clicks can be hits or misses. So I think I'll just, right now, just set mode equal 2. Or mode equals 3. We'll just lose the game whenever we click in the game. This is basically a pointless game. So if I click, it starts the game. Here we go. I'm going to miss and lose the game. And curse you. And then I press again and I go back to the intro screen. See, it works. The mode framework is fully armed and operational. We are now going to make this clicking a little more exciting. I'd like to actually see if I click on the circle. So I could use good old dist. Remember dist? Float d. We would make a variable to calculate the distance. Actually, hold on. Let's just look at this. I'll just remind everybody how this works. This is old news to most of us. But yeah, we want to figure out if that mouse is inside the circle. What we do is we just compare the distance from the center of the circle to the mouse. So we find that distance. Just imagine a line from the center of the circle to the mouse. We compare it to the radius of the circle. So if the distance is less than the radius, it's on the circle. Woo! And we can do that, no problem. We can calculate the distance with a built-in distance function. So we can compare the center of the circle. Where's the center of the circle? At x and y, yeah. And then the mouse is at mouse x and mouse y, yeah. And we can compare it now. So we calculate the distance. We'll call that d. And then we can say if d is less than, hey, what's the radius of our circle? 50. Then, we can do something. Maybe we'll increase score. Score equals score plus 1. I don't have a score variable. So, I guess I better go put 1 in. Hit score. We can start score maybe at 0. We're going to need a lives variable too, so we can lose lives. And that'll be what happens if we miss. Yeah, programming missing in here is actually pretty easy. You could just say, we could just say, hey, if this happens, if the mouse is less than 50, increase the score. Else, in other words, if it wasn't less than 50, it was greater than 50, we guess we missed. You say lives equals lives minus 1. And then I would say if lives equals 0, then game over. Mode equals 3. That's me doing that. I think that's the best way to do it. So let's run it. Let's see. I don't think I actually set lives to anything but 0, so I think it's gonna still kill me. Or not. Interesting. Let's see. So we have ourselves score and lives. Oh yeah, because I guess it gets to -1 right away. So let's set lives to 3 and score to 0. And now we can run this. It'd be nice to actually see what those variables are. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, game over. Okay, so that's good. It's probably not that exciting for you to be watching at home because you can't see that me clicking the mouse. So I think I'm just gonna add into the game, just in the background, a little bit of text. I'll say text score. Actually, I'll put out the word score first, and then I guess I'll put the variable score. This is how you print out both the word and the value. And I'll put that at, say, 1010. And then I'll say text lives plus lives 1030. And then we can actually see those things going around. And here we go. Oh, yeah, there they are. So score is 0 lives. I got only 1 life left. Oh, I got a score. Oh, I missed. I died. Oh, man. Probably hard for you still to see that. So text size 50. And then we probably have to move this down considerably. 100, 200. I don't know. It's going to be pretty ugly, but yeah, this game isn't meant for my example. Is not meant to be beautiful. Here we go. Oh, there we go. So if I click and miss, yeah, lives went down by 1. If I hit it, score goes up by 1. And if I go to 0 lives, oh, game over. Ba-ba-da-bum. Well, lots of things were learned today. This has been sort of the accumulation of our lessons over the last little while. So if you've missed out on some classes, this gets you to where you need to be. there are some additional criteria that we didn't cover in this video, and that's going to be involving, first of all, loading images. So it's not just some green screen. You know, load some background pictures. Sound effects is something that if you didn't catch, the minim library is another thing we have to add in. You're going to also be making the target, speed up as we play the game. So that's another thing to figure out how to do. We need a high score variable as well. So, as your score increases and then eventually you lose, you should show what the high score is and whether or not you beat it. And then the next time you play, the new high score will sort of be remembered. And then there's also 2 features of your choice to build into this project. So they can range from a number of different possibilities. Uh, I've mentioned some in class, but I would recommend you check with me before you go with a particular feature, just so you know if it's meaty enough or like it's got enough substance to count as a full feature. If you aren't sure, just ask me. And also, I guess there's a possibility that it's too hard. Like you might try something that's you think isn't hard, but is actually super, super hard. And I'll let you know if it's going to be, a very challenging thing to do. So there it is. That's this lesson. Thanks for listening. Bye.